We won awards from InfoWorld magazine, from the MarTech Weekly. We really earned the awards based on the content we delivered. It's really about bridging finance, sales, and marketing as a revenue engine. We do that by building predictive long-term forecasts. So to give you an idea, I could tell you today which you're likely to book in December of 2026. Beware of the person who tells you they have a playbook. I'm going to come deploy my playbook. That playbook might be 10, 20, 30 years old. Talk to the person who says, I have really good ideas, but let me learn a bit more about your business and how you do things so we can build a playbook for you.
Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Southern California, Orange County. How about you?
Wonderful. I'm in San Francisco.
Oh, very nice. Beautiful city. Always a little cloudy for my liking, but beautiful city.
Indeed. Yeah, I moved from Europe to California. I'm originally from Sweden to escape the cold weather, and I came to San Francisco, and I felt a little bit betrayed because I thought all of California had good weather.
Well, I'm sure you've heard the old Mark Twain quote. There's nothing colder than a summer in San Francisco, something like that.
It's accurate for sure.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Well, again, thank you so much for calling in. Great to meet you. I hope your day is going great. Before
Likewise.
we dig in, I'd like to give you a little bit of context. I'm the founder of Imperial Arts. We partner with B2B SaaS companies to help increase their revenue and profitability by acquiring new clients. That is why we're interviewing leaders like yourself and previously people at Mercedes-Benz and Cisco to gain deeper insights into the market while providing value back in the form of this podcast. This usually takes about 30 to 40 minutes. Does that
Okay.
sound good to you?
It does, yes.
Sweet. All right. So let's get started. I understand that your company provides financial products for teams to use in sales. Could you share a little bit of more insight into your business, present it a little bit, get our audience familiar with it and the role you play within it as well?
Sure, absolutely. So Outset is a SaaS software company. We generally target B2B companies with recurring revenue models. Our focus, like you said, is in the financial world, but it's really about bridging finance, sales, and marketing as a revenue engine to make sure dollars are spent efficiently on sales and marketing activities. Um, we do that by building predictive long-term forecasts. So to give you an idea, I could tell you today which you're likely to book in December of 2026. Um, Once we can see what that long-term view looks like, 18 months into the future, we can start to model sales and marketing spending really efficiently to make sure you get the return on investment that you want.
Fantastic, fantastic. And could you tell us a little bit about your customers as well? What is kind of the landscape today, looking in your industry? How is it getting customers involved with your product in today's landscape?
Sure, it's challenging to be honest. Our customers range in size from startups to large entities, so we kind of span the spectrum. But all seem to be at a point right now, in my opinion at least, where they are, excuse me, trying to reduce or minimize rev tech spend broadly. Um, People have bought Salesforce or HubSpot or SalesLoft or Clary, Gong, and. The list has gotten really long of applications they're using. So at a time when they're trying to lessen spend on RevTech, I'm trying to convince them that, hey, look, we've got a new view on how to forecast, and you should really want to talk to us. So building pipeline in that scenario has been challenging. Candidly, if I can get a half hour or an hour with someone, I usually get aha moments and they get really excited. But in terms of initial outreach, when you have 5, 10, 20 seconds to get somebody's attention, that's been really hard.
Yeah, I can imagine. And I mean, you did mention a lot of other competitors out there in the space. I do understand more and more are coming up. What are kind of the current trends in the market that you are aware of? Where are the winds blowing and what are you noticing?
Yeah, great question. So everybody I mentioned isn't necessarily a competitor, but they're a competitor for mind share, that's for sure, and they're a competitor for budget and spend. What I'm seeing is that companies put a lot of effort into trying to figure out how to forecast more effectively. And in my opinion, they did it in an okay kind of way. By that, I mean most of the forecasting tools are still relying on opportunities to exist in a CRM system. They're relying on sellers to put in pretty decent or high quality data. Um, and they're relying on fields and data points that really lend themselves to short term forecasting. I can count on a seller or a sales leader to have a pretty good grasp of bookings, probably 90 days into the future. Beyond that, things become very blurry. But beyond that is where finance and a CEO, for example, are making big decisions about the company. What can I spend today to get a yield in December of this year? What are bookings going to look like along the way? Can I afford it? Without a good long term forecast, it's hard for executives to run a company.
So let me dig into that. Where are you kind of spending the money? Where do you see the most opportunities?
In terms of creating demand or generating pipeline,
Correct.
yeah, so it's in a couple of areas. We focus a lot on nearbound motions, people who or entities who are one step removed from us. So, I meet you. Who can you introduce me to? Those are pretty big for us. Um, Number two, we're putting a lot into channel. So we established a great partnership with a company called RSM. RSM is, a $4 billion accountancy, tax, and compliance firm. So having them as a go-to-market partner to introduce us to clients has been very helpful. Um, those are pretty targeted endeavors. I'm putting some effort in LinkedIn into founder led type work, building followership and hopefully putting good content out there. I think that's helping. Um, Beyond that, we've struggled with a broad outreach. If we just try to have an SDR cold call or do a broad email campaign, those are pretty low response rates.
Yeah, absolutely. So building up on top of these outreach campaigns and the growth focus that you've been doing, when you look at the next 6 to 12 months in your business, where do you see the biggest opportunities for growth that you're really excited about? You did mention a few gaps, but I would love to hear a little bit of where your challenges are that could be fixed as well.
Sure. So the first thing we're doing is working on messaging. It's funny. We won awards from InfoWorld magazine, from the Martech Weekly, very prestigious awards. Um, and we didn't spend money really with those applications, right? We really earned the awards based on the content we delivered, and the ideas we shared. So I know that when we get a long period of time with people, they tend to get it and get really excited about it. But we have to refine our messaging to have the short bite, the hook that makes people want to engage. That's something we're focused a lot on. Number two, we're starting to think about what's the word I'm looking for? Adjusting messaging by a maturity model. So a company with say less than $10 million in recurring revenue might be building their go-to-market motion, and they might use Outset a little bit differently than somebody who's at $100 million, who's trying to optimize that motion. So we're looking at how to rethink how we talk to various segments of the market, even though they may be doing a similar thing. Somebody shifting from founder-led sales to a proper revenue engine, right? Those are two very different scenarios, and making sure we moderate messaging across those.
Yeah, so it really seems like it is very important for you to build more strategic visibility right now. So whether that would be the personal branding for the business or the company positioning or just getting your story out more clearly to ideal partners or clients. Could you talk a little bit more about that type of messaging and how it differs?
Sure. So if we're talking about people, and I'm kind of broadly bucketing when I say sub $10 million, but you usually have probably a founder led sales organization, maybe newly shifting from founder led sales. Rev ops may or may not be mature. They may struggle to make I don't want to say sound investment decisions, but if you don't have enough history and data, it can be hard to decide whether to hire a salesperson or invest in campaign X, Y, or Z, to engage in partnership A, B, or C. So we can help people model those things. What's the impact of hiring a seller? What does that look like in the long term? What does campaign A versus B versus C look like? We do that by looking at past data. And what's unique in that model, again, for these kind of earlier stage entities is we don't need perfect data to make our predictions. We're not queuing off of things like the amount the seller puts into the system or the close date the seller puts into the system. We're queuing off of things that are stamped in the CRM that are actuals. When did we find a lead? When did it qualify? When did it become a deal or opportunity, depending on the CRM? When did it reach disposition? So by queuing off of those things, we can make accurate predictions for the smaller entities when there is not enough, not a ton of data, or the data is slightly imperfect. Um, when we go bigger, then we get into a mode where hopefully we're having a CEMO, a CRO, and a CFO use Outset to model these things together and say, okay, let's model 20 or 25 things. Let's pick the package of things we want to deploy. Maybe there's five, six, or seven. What's the investment? What's the return on the investments? Most importantly, what's the when on the return of investments? So Outset's going to tell you by month when bookings should arrive, which gives finance that proxy for both revenue and cash, right? Which is king, whether you're a small business or large. So, I think as we moderate that messaging and adjust and shape the tones, I think it's going to help us quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked a lot about teams here and hiring people. And when it comes to building or scaling teams to help drive growth, do you prefer doing most things yourself, or are you more focused on finding the right partners and systems to take things off your plate?
It's a bit of both. Look, I am trying to build a profitable, efficient company, which means I don't want to overload myself with W 2 employees. I want to find really good partners. So we outsource some of our development. We have leaned into outsourcing some of our marketing efforts along the way, using fractional resources. I think that's important. I don't want to build a large W 2 employee base until we've achieved product market fit. We can see replicatable processes that we know work. And we're really confident in our ability to run a profitable business. I believe that growth at all costs is dead. I think profitable, efficient growth matters. And I'm indexing towards that.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about that growth. I mean, I would love to know more about the growth of Outset, how you've been doing, and I mean, we've been talking a little bit about challenges, but where are your wins?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, I would say establishing the partnership with RSM. The fact that we could have an entity their size choose to partner with us for go to market. The fact that their data scientists could go through our algorithms and our math, if you will, and define it to be high quality interpretable math, for example, that we use on the regression analysis side. Having an organization like that with us has been fantastic. We have great partners like HLX or Helix and others who also embed us into their package services. So if Helix, for example, wants to go out and deploy their services to a customer, Outset becomes the backbone of those services. We're underneath the covers, looking at data, performing the analysis, making the predictions on where things can go. And building partners like that has been hugely beneficial to us. It's cost effective. It means really bright people are wrapped around our product during the implementation, which I love. I'll tell you the downside to building that kind of channel is it takes time. It's hard to find partners. It's hard to educate them. It's hard to get them excited, especially when you're early in a growth cycle. I've had more than one entity say, Darren, until I know I can build $1 million a year consulting business around your product, I don't want to bring it into my portfolio, right? And our goal isn't to drive a ton of consulting services. It's to make our customers' lives easier. So there's a little conflict there that we deal with at times.
So, with all of that data coming from Outset, what can your clients do with it, and how do they translate that into affecting their bottom line? Like you said, making $1 million. How does that data come into play?
Yeah, really great question. So I'll see if I can be succinct. Sometimes I get long-winded, the founder and the baby. So
Please
you know
go.
how that
No,
goes.
we have time. Please go ahead.
Wonderful. So, at the core, what we do in Outset is we plug into your CRM system, um, and we effectively organize all of your data into cohorts by top of funnel entrance. We do that automatically, makes life pretty easy for you. And then we use our algorithms to see how things move from awareness, the earliest possible top of funnel stage, all the way through disposition. And we queue off key points in that life cycle. So that's part one, really deep cohort analysis. Number two, really high quality regression analysis and other types of fancy math against those cohorts. Um, Number three, we layer in dimensionality. So customers define the dimensions at which they want to view their business. That could be a channel, inbound, outbound, partner, referral. It could be a segment, small business, enterprise. It could be a geography, a product line, a deal type, whatever you like. So once we've got the cohorts, once we've used the regressions to help predict what the future looks like, inclusive of seasonality, um, then we can start to model spend by dimension. So it's interesting. Some people might think I only want to invest in the most profitable campaign, um, but I could also be saying I want to grow the small business segment for a new product line, right? So I want to model investments in this area. How if I target my Google ads or my LinkedIn ads to this particular dimension? What if I target them to, the Western U.S. For a product line? I can start to make bets and guesses and say, okay, what will this return to me? And this is a combination of human inputs, what we know in our brain, what we think is going to happen, and what our math will do in the platform itself. The second thing we can do is we can actually we give you a very nice UI to adjust the predictive model. So, say for example, you have a CEO. I've lived in these shoes before, where the CEO says, "Hey CRO, on January 1, we're going to deprecate spend in the small business in favor of mid-market enterprise." The predictive model, the data set doesn't know that's coming, but you as a CRO and the CEO do. So we can tune the
Mhm.
predictive model and say, hey, what happens if we make these adjustments on January 1? How does next year look? So because we give you so many ways to model spend in a dimensional way, you can be really effective in targeting your dollars.
Wow, that must be a lot of data sets that must affect these types of algorithm. What's the kind of end result that your client get out of these? Like, is it a sense of like an insight that they get to act on, or is it a specific number, or are there specific metrics? What are they?
Yeah, great questions. It's kind of all of the above. So we're going to give you metrics by dimension. We're of course going to have access to the historical performance, so we can show you all of that. Average deal size, sales cycle duration, close rates by cohort. The list goes on and on and on. But we're predicting those out into the future as well. So I can see the trend. I might see in this dimension that my average sell price is predicted to decline on a 12-month horizon. So I could take action on that with efficiency work as opposed to campaign spend. Um, so because we're giving a view into such detail, you can really tune your problem solving to go fix things. At the higher level, when the CEO or maybe the CFO, the CMO, and the CRO are having the debate about what do we do? Do we fund campaigns? Do we hire sales capacity? Um, as we're layering those ideas into the model, it's using regression analysis and automatically updating the predictions in real time. And so I can see right now if I hire two sellers today, what's the likely impact in comparison to my target in December of this year or March of next year. So in real time, I can see what's happening. I'm not going to analysts who are using spreadsheets and saying, model this for me and come back at the next meeting, right? I'm doing it in real time around the table. We've tried to build something that the CRO or any leader really could drive themselves. But we commonly see a RevOps person in the room too, kind of with doing the picks and clicks.
Yeah, it really seems like your product has matured a lot. How long have you been in business for?
We first started building out the product in 2023. So we've been around for probably right about 2 years. We monetized middle of last year, started bringing our first customers onto the platform. So I went through kind of a very kind of clear, you know, early ideation component into an alpha and then to a beta, and then to a release for monetization. So we're still pretty early in our life, but we're hitting that point where I think we're starting to catch wind. I'm not declaring victory yet. I'm not saying we've hit product market fit. For me, that means my phone's got to be ringing, right? If I've really got
Yes.
product market fit, and that's not quite happening yet, but we're going to get close soon.
So, in your recent experience, would you say that your business development and client acquisition processes are where you want them to be, or are there still parts that feel slower or heavier than they should?
They definitely are not where we want them to be. My single biggest complaint, let me rephrase that. My single biggest goal or priority right now is customer acquisition. My biggest complaint would be lack of at bats. We're not talking to enough people every week. I would say absolutely bar none. That's my biggest challenge right now and something I have to solve for.
Okay, so yeah, I guess you answered my follow-up question. My follow-up question would have been if you had a magic wand that you could wave to solve one thing, what would that be? Do you want to
Yeah.
expand on that?
Yeah, it'd be making the phone ring. If it was
Yes.
magic, then I just want the phone to
Yes.
ring. Um, look, we've built something that I think is critically important. And I think we built something that people too often dismiss too easily, which is unfortunate. I've actually had CROs say to me, hey Darren, we're sitting on what's today's date? May. We're somewhere in May of 2025. Um, hey Darren, thinking beyond July for me is a champagne problem. If I don't make May, June, and July, I won't have a job. Stop talking about December. Um, but what I always say is, the campaigns that are running today are the ones that are going to help you keep or lose your job in December.
Yeah.
What's happening right now is going to determine whether things are going to book 4, 5, 6, 12 months down the line, depending on your sales cycle. So I wish I could get CROs to say, wake up and say, I've got to spend 15% of my time on the long term view, or I will be that 17-month CRO and I will lose my job. Um, I wish CMOs would say, I have to tick and tie every campaign to bookings and revenue because we can't spend MQLs. We can't spend SQLs. We can't spend meetings set. We can't spend meetings held, right? We have to tick and tie that marketing spend all the way through to cash on the books. Um, I want the CFOs to be in a spot where they're saying, Outset tells me that I should invest. CFOs know. All right. CFOs are often called the land of no. They always say no. You can't have that money. You can't have that money. You can't have that money. But the reality is, a high quality CFO knows you cannot save your way to a liquidity event. You have to invest. But sales and marketing have to give them the data they need and the relevant information so those investments can be approved and made. So my dream state is that somehow I could wave a magic wand and people would get those high level concepts and say, "Hey, Outset, how do you solve this for me?" But I find people behave in silos. They speak their own language a little bit. Marketing has a language, sales has a language, finance has a language, and it's not coming together like it should. And by golly, I want to save that. I want to fix that. I want to change that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, speaking of that, and also your phones getting hot and phones calling. What have you tried before, and what didn't work?
Yeah, great question. So, at first I just started throwing stuff up on LinkedIn without much thought. It wasn't getting much followership. It wasn't getting much content. So I leaned into some of the folks who are doing more founder-led work. I don't claim to have cracked the code, but I'm approaching 8,000 followers, and I'm getting inbound queries now via LinkedIn. But
Fantastic.
that's been a lot of manual work. I write my own content. I haven't outsourced it, right? I'm doing that kind of each and every day. So it hasn't worked as well as I'd like, but it's making some headway. A spectacular failure was setting up kind of an AI based SDR model initially. To be clear, it was not the technology and it was not the process. It was the messaging. So we took messaging that wasn't working and decided to automate it at scale. Right. So all we did was take something that didn't work and pay to make sure it didn't work on a broader scale. So we need to rethink those kind of things and make sure we're saying the right things. We need to test the messaging more effectively before we scale it, and make sure we know what people are going to do. I think the third thing is, and look, this could be on me, and I'll take ownership for it as a flaw. It's hard for me, as somebody who's been a W 2 employee most of my career, somebody who's had big teams working for him in this case. to all of a sudden have to cold call and pick up the phone and
Oh,
hustle and try to book my own meetings. And when you're pre-revenue day one, that's part of the game. And I could have done better at that.
yeah, absolutely. One thing we love about the leaders that we interview is that they're usually really open to new ways of solving old problems.
Oh
So,
yes.
how do you personally approach finding new strategies or partners to help drive growth in your business?
I tend to ask a lot of questions. I think it's really important that I shed the idea that I've been in the industry for this long, and I know this much, and I can tell you how to do it. In fact, I try to tell people that I engage with, if I'm telling you how to do it at this point, it's probably wrong because things have changed. Modern motions are different. People engage differently. I've got two children in their 20s. The way they engage with media and the way they consume information is totally different than I ever did. Um, I'll give you a funny and very basic example. I was talking about to somebody the other day about texting. Should I text this person? And it was kind of funny. They asked me, is the person under 35 years old? And I said, yes. They said, then definitely text. Right. So it's this idea of changing and moderating and thinking differently. My worldview is texting somebody for prospecting is kind of rude. It's intrusive. For others, it's convenient, and I'll let you know if I want to engage or not. So I really need to lean
Yes.
into listening to the folks who are doing it right now, understanding what's working and what's not. Um, and then I believe very heavily in when I engage somebody in making sure we have a model where we experiment and test. Um, and I'm a big believer, and I think I stole it from the innovator's DNA or innovator's dilemma in failing fast. Let's run a test. Let's fail fast. If it doesn't work, let's high five. Awesome. That didn't work. What are we going to try next? If we run it for three
Yeah,
months
it's a
like I did with
learning.
AI SDR, I should have killed it
Yeah.
sooner.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, failing is learning, so it just makes you progress faster. Yeah, I did also want to ask you what would happen if nothing changed moving on? If you didn't um, attack these pain points that you have today in your business, what would that look like for you?
I mean, that's a really good question. I think the answer is the market in the moment would pass us by. I do think we have something that's very, very relevant right now. I think people need it today. And if we sit on our hands for 6 months or a year in this market, we'll get passed by. We'll lose relevance. Somebody else will come along and do it. AI will change the way things are being done for sure. I think we have the opportunity to take what we built, layer in even more AI, and accelerate to a really amazing place. Um, and sitting on our hands and taking too much time will be fatal.
Yeah, that's a wonderful insight, and the fact that you know this and you're aware already tells me that you're on the right path of solving these issues. And with that being said, usually when we wrap up these podcasts, I always like to ask our leaders if there's anything you'd like to share that I didn't ask.
Wow, a great question. Anything I would share that you didn't ask? I would say that the motion is going to change a lot for opening and finding prospects, and that's going to change really rapidly. In particular, over the next 24 or 36 months. The advent of agents and AI-based interactions and avatars that I can make an avatar of me right now and have it talking to people like crazy in a very automated way. Um, you have to be constantly researching and challenging your thinking and really experimenting and seeing what's trying to work and what isn't. That might be a little redundant. But I think a lot of people, especially when they achieve a certain level in their career, at an executive level, tend to know what's going to work. I know what's going to work. I've done this. Um, and it doesn't. I warn people right now, if you're thinking about hiring a fractional sales leader, for example, I've got people. I always say, beware of the person who tells you they have a playbook. I'm going to come deploy my playbook. Um, that playbook might be 10, 20, 30 years old, and it might not fit this market. Talk to the person who says, I have really good ideas, but let me learn a bit more about your business and how you do things and see what the intersection of my ideas and some other things are so we can build a playbook for you. Right. And so I think really challenging yourself to learn, challenging what you think you know is more important now than perhaps it ever was. Or maybe the last time was at the Industrial Revolution, right? We're at one of those kind of moments where you got to challenge what you're thinking and lean into new ideas.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I do want to thank you so much again for joining this podcast, and thank you so much for sharing your insights. This has been extremely helpful, and I think will help a lot of early founders understands the kind of ins and outs of how it is running a business, and especially you as a CEO and you coming from other companies as well, managing. This has been wonderful. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. It was a great time.